So we're going to have some Torah study time today. We are Thanksgiving week. We're celebrating Thanksgiving weekend. A lot of us are seeing family. We don't get to pick our family. We love our family, but we don't get to choose them, right? And so sometimes the kind of love that we feel and show to family is a little hard. It could require some stretching. It could require some work. And so I wanted to bring us this morning one of our ancestors who we could read in this Dvar Torah by Rabbi Dina Weiss at Hadar, and she reads into Isaac some amazing capacity for love, even when it's difficult. So I wanted to lift up Isaac this morning. So I'm going to share, it's a combo. I'm going to share her Dvar Torah and guide us through some of the sources that she uses, but I also hope we have some time for discussion. So I hope that it's not only Rabbi Weiss that we hear, but also that we get to participate. Okay, so first, I'll give you some of her framing and some of her introduction, and then we'll get into this. I love this first story from the Talmud. You can look ahead if you want. There are no rules. I'm not going to say you have to, keep the suspense. You can look if you want. So this is Rabbi Dina Weiss, who's just really, really brilliant, a brilliant teacher of Torah. She says that Yitzchak is one of the most enigmatic figures in the Torah. It is hard to understand what motivates him, what makes him unique, as he quite literally follows in his father's footsteps and seems to allow his life to be determined by others. He marries his wife based on this choice that his father's slave makes. This is choosing Rebecca, right? The story at the well. So he doesn't choose his own wife. He redigs the wells that his father had dug, and that's in this week's Parsha. He redigs Abraham's wells, and he appears to be tricked by his wife and his youngest son, and that's also in this Parsha, right? He's tricked, the part that we read this morning. Yet, Yitzchak is Kabbalistically associated with the quality of gevura, of strength. So it seems like a mismatch. So it begs for us to look into why he would be associated with strength. Although he's not the hero of many of these stories. He's pretty passive. And I'm going to add a little of my own, commentary, which is that I've been reading, as I shared, one of my teachers from seminary, Dr. Amy Kalmanovsky. So I've been reading a lot of her lately, and her view on Isaac is that he is really not a hero, not this patriarchal figure like the others, and that actually Rebecca, Rivka, in that story is more like the hero and the patriarch. So she's really giving Rivka the credit for being kind of the hero and not Isaac. So that goes along with what Rabbi Weiss is noticing. So she describes this story in the Talmud as a time when Isaac, which we're going to read, it's the first one, number one, as when Isaac outshines our other forefathers, and we can appreciate Isaac's character. We learn that love motivates his choices and makes him uniquely strong among our patriarchs, our forefathers. So this is going to be Isaac's time to shine. Would someone like to read the beginning of this story? This is from Shabbat, the Babylonian Talmud from Shabbat 89b. And this is a midrash. So it's not in the Torah. This is a rabbinic story about what could have happened, should have happened, might have happened. Does someone want to read for us? It's a good one. Thank you, Sue.
In the coming future, the Holy Blessed One will say to Abraham, "Your children have sinned against me." Abraham will say before God, "Master of the universe, if so, let them be eradicated, thereby sanctifying your name." God said, "I will say this to Jacob instead, since he experienced the difficulty of raising children, perhaps he will ask for mercy on them." God said to Jacob, "Your children have sinned." Jacob will say before God, "Master of the universe, if so, let them be eradicated, thereby sanctifying your name."
Thank you. Hold on one second. Okay, so God has said, notice that the people have sinned, right? That's a comment that happens all the time. That's like every other day, right? In the story of the Torah and in the Bible, and God looks to Abraham and says, like, what should I do? They sinned again. And Abraham says, and again, there's no time in chronology because this is a made-up story, but theoretically, God can say to Abraham, what should I do? And Abraham says, basically like, what? Wipe them out, kill them. Sure, like, they're done. They messed up, they're done. And we don't see this in the English, but in the original, it's the word for sanctifying your name is Kiddush Hashem, right? So, which is this like martyrdom. Let them be martyrs. They messed up. They're important, good people, but they're messed up. We're going to punish them, kill them, let them be martyrs. And Jacob says the same thing. But God at first thinks that maybe because Jacob has difficulty with his children, we know some of that story, Jacob's sons, Joseph, his brothers, right? We know there was difficulty in that family. So maybe Jacob's going to be kinder. But no, he's not. So notice God skips a generation, though. God first goes to Abraham and then goes to Jacob. Maybe God thought Isaac's not going to have a good answer. I don't know why he was skipped. But we're going to Isaac now. So yeah, if you have any reactions, I'm happy to. There'll be plenty of time for them. But now God's going to go to Isaac. Sue, would you continue?
The Holy Blessed One said, "There is no reason in elders and no sagacity in me, that is, neither Abraham nor Jacob gave a wise response."
Whoops.
God said to Isaac, "Your children have sinned against me." Isaac said before God, Master of the universe, "Are they my children and not your children?" At Sinai, when they proceeded, we will listen before you. You didn't call them my son, my firstborn. Now that they have sinned, are they my children and not your children? Furthermore, how much did they sin? How long is a person's life?
I love this part.
Subtract the first 20 years of his life for one that is not punished in heaven for sins committed then. 50 years remain. Subtract 25 years of nights, and 25 years remain. Subtract 12 and a half years for praying, eating, and using the bathroom, and 12 and a half years remain. If you can suffer them, all good. But if not, half of the sins are upon me, and half are upon you. And if you say that all of them are upon me, I sacrifice my soul before you. The Jewish people began to say to Isaac, "You are our father." Isaac said to them, "Before you praise me, praise the Holy Blessed One." And Isaac points to the Holy Blessed One before their eyes. Immediately they lift their eyes heavenward and say, "You, God, are our Father, our Redeemer. Your name is everlasting."
Thank you. What an answer from Isaac. So what does he do first? With this quote from, it's Shemot, which is like Exodus. He brings the quote from Exodus. Yeah.
Just like a parent who says, your kid messed up to the other parent, They're your kids when they do bad.
Right,
They're
right.
my kids when they're great, and they're your kids when they
Like between
mess
two
up.
parents saying, right, between two parents would say, like, your son just made a mess. And then the other parent is like, oh, he's not your son now? Yeah, exactly. And pointing out this verse in the Torah when God calls the people my child, my firstborn child, and says, now that they're, right, you said they were so important to you, they're your child, and now they're not. Okay, anything else on that piece? Any reactions? It's a good argument. Like he brings a good, the character of Isaac in this midrash brings a good quote from the Torah, right, to support the story. Yeah, I thought I saw a hand. Yeah.
The importance is of taking it down to 12 and a half years of sins.
I know that part is the second part. You're talking about the second part of the argument. That is hilarious, I think, and really. So how does he cut it down?
To what end?
To one end. Okay. Well, that's the second question. But how does he actually do it? How does he cut it down to only 12 years?
Sort of minimizes the fullness of life, right? Like the first 20 years don't count. And then you're sleeping a lot of it, so that can't count. You in the bathroom sometimes, that doesn't count.
The first 20 years don't count, meaning like when you're young, everyone expects you're going to sin.
And you're not sinning when you're praying and eating.
It's true. Toby, brain development.
Like brain development, like we know things, right? Your brain isn't fully developed until your early 20s. So there's actually some wisdom in this.
Sometimes later.
There's some wisdom in that,
Right.
Even though they didn't know exactly what was going on.
Right.
There is some wisdom in that. That's why we don't hold people
Right. Our justice system takes account of that to some degree, maybe not enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like there's such beautiful and also hilarious, like as you say, Jewish wisdom in this, like the arguing of all the loopholes
I love it.
to get us out of responsibility is amazing. It sort of reminds me of like how to make a delicious cake on Passover. Like, how do we find like the right way to still eat cake? How do we find the right way to sin in life, but also be like, well, I was in the bathroom. I couldn't have been sinning. What are you talking about? But the other thing is like the Rahmanis that Isaac
Yes.
seems to have here for people understands that there's a lot of difficulty in 7 years of a life. It's very hard to get through without committing lots of sins, and so like I think he's a pretty agile defense attorney.
Agile defense attorney. Just repeating a few things in case someone's watching over the live stream. I think, yes, compassion, good advocate. Yes.
He's also a motivated advocate, and his father and son both call for eradication of the sinners. And Isaac, Hashem called for his eradication.
Yes. You totally anticipated Rabbi Weiss's kind of framing of this. So yes, well, you want to say more? Because I'd rather hear from you than reading her. It's a good idea.
God ordered his father to
Isaac's father. God ordered Isaac's father, Abraham.
to sacrifice him when he was, within those 20 years where you're not responsible for your actions that he cites.
Yeah, maybe. There's a debate about how old he was, but he was certainly young.
He was young. He doesn't do anything the rest of his life. He doesn't go to Egypt even, like everyone else in his family does. He is marked by this experience.
Yes.
So, yes, he is against eradication, and he finds reason to fondle with Hashem.
Yes. The one of the three of them, the one who was almost sacrificed, and then a lot of readings of Isaac after that experience are of trauma. That he doesn't speak to Abraham afterwards. That he's been traumatized by the potential violence that could come from listening to God. He knows that maybe more than anyone. Yeah.
But in some ways, he's following in his father's footsteps again. This sounds a lot like Abraham arguing with God about Sodom and Gomorrah. And all the numbers, and if it's this and it's that. So there's something of his father still in it.
Yes. So pointing out that Abraham also argues with God over Sodom and Amorah, and wanting to. Abraham also argues in order to save some people from punishment, and in that way, maybe Isaac is following in his father's footsteps. Yeah, and that example could have been given in this midrash, and Abraham could have been the one to have the right answer, but they don't. The rabbis don't put it in Abraham's voice, put it in Isaac's voice. Was there someone else on this side? Yeah.
We've got more or less the point I was going to make in a slightly different way, which is it makes the story seem a bit contrived.
Oh, it's maybe contrived, but it doesn't have to seem contrived because it is. It's an imaginative story. So maybe it seems a little extra contrived. I see your point. I was going to say when Chazan Fradkin was pointing, we'll find any way to have cake on Passover. It reminds me of in our family, our dog Benny Zahav has too many treats. He's not supposed to, he has too many treats. He's gained like a pound. He needs to, and I have to say, I hope it's not embarrassing, but Karen is always advocating for him to have treats. She makes complicated arguments like, is that James in your family? She's like, well, his scoop this morning was slightly smaller of his food, and we took an extra long walk, and so he burned off. She's always trying to find reasons to give him treats, which I'm sure he appreciates. She's got his back. I know, she's got his back. Okay, so thank you guys for your comments on that. You really anticipated really how this is used in Rabbi Weiss's point, which is that of course the one who has that violence in his past, remembering the Akedah, remembering almost being sacrificed, he can say that he already died or was willing to die sanctifying God's name. So in a way, like, I've been there. I've done that. It was not good. And God, if you want to take someone, you already did it to me. So let me take the fall, or let me take that punishment on behalf of the people. And so you don't have to punish them. I really like that. So she's saying that this is maybe not ultimately about martyrdom so much, and she's going to shift a little bit here. It's about fatherhood. She's going to say it's about fatherhood. Whereas Abraham and Jacob have failed as fathers, they do not stand up for their children when they could have. Isaac is a powerful paternal voice that he's almost considered to be a greater father than God himself in this story. When Isaac asks God rhetorically, "Are they my children and not yours?" Isaac forces God to acknowledge that one cannot abandon or sacrifice one's children. If they're sinning, even if eradicating them seems like the most likely consequence, another solution must be found. And if there needs to be a sin and a punishment for sin, then the father should bear that punishment. And Isaac is an example of someone who has certainly been punished through his experience of the Akedah. Okay, let's move on to the second source. This is Rabbi Meir Premishlan. Is that how you say it? I'm sure there's a better way to pronounce that. 18th century Hasidic dynasty, and this is a paraphrase of his teaching. Someone want to read this one? This is a short one. Thank you.
Part of the key to Yitzhak's victory here is the force of his character. Yitzhak has a son who is challenging, who causes his parents and others anguish, who might even be called evil. But Yitzhak still loves him and does not give up.
Thank you. And here we're shifting. Yeah, so we're shifting into this fatherhood framing, right? So she's arguing that Isaac is a really good father, and that's part of his way of loving. So we're shifting a little bit. There is a whole a lot of midrash about Esav, about Esau being the wicked of the two children. So some of it's part of the story of the Torah, that there were two sons, they were struggling in the womb, that one of them was red-colored and hairy, and that they're somehow marked to be different. That's Esav, right? So Jacob and Esau. Still hard for me to say Esau. I don't know why. Jacob and Esau. Oh, was there a comment? Okay. Some of that, we can get into it a little bit more. I can share, but he's sometimes known as Esau the wicked. And so having to deal with that struggle, even just the struggle of having the two sons vying for status in the family. That's what she's talking about there. In bringing this Hasidic text. Okay. And the idea that Isaac still loves him and does not give up on him, that's what's going to be the next few verses, which are from this parsha, from Toldot. Okay, so the next one, does someone want to read this Bereshit, the boys grew up? This is, thank you, Holly. Not only did so we're going to see that not only did Isaac and Rebekah love different children, so Rebekah loves Jacob, Isaac loves Esau, but they love them in different ways. Thank you.
The boys grew up, and Esau became a man who had a hut, a man of the field, and Jacob was a calm man dwelling in tents. And Isaac loved Esau, for there was game in his mouth, and Rebekah loved Isaac.
Thank you. So the 4 is underlined because the drash on this, which I really like, is we usually read that Isaac loves Esau because he's maybe more like him, or he's more masculine, or he's more fun, that the boy who likes to go outside and hunt is aligned with the father, and the boy who likes to stay inside is aligned with the mother. And so she's going to argue that we could read 4 to mean, because the Hebrew is ki, which has a few different meanings. So ki could mean for or because of who he was, that he liked to hunt, or it could also mean when. It could also mean more like the two things happen, maybe despite, I'm reading a little into that, but maybe despite the fact that that's who he was. So let me just read you a little bit of her argument there. It can also mean when, the word ki. Maybe Isaac doesn't love Esau because of his predilection for hunting, but rather despite or merely alongside of it. He loves Esau even when he's hunting, even though he's exhibiting a personality, a character, or behavior that might be at odds with how Isaac planned for his son to be. You know, we don't know exactly what he expected, so we don't know what that word necessarily means. It's a little bit of a stretch, but that's where she's going there. I want to just go to the next verse because we're going to get these three, number 3 verse, this third source, you see how they're numbered, number 3, number 4, and then number 5 on the next page are going to be examples of Isaac is described as someone who is loving in a unique way. So they're all about Isaac and how he loves. So we have this first one that Rebecca loves. The first one meaning like the third one, number 3. Isaac loved Esau and Rebecca loves Isaac. So if you look at the Hebrew, the first, the bold, Vaye'ehav Yitzchak et Esav. So the way Isaac loves his son Esav is this kind of active, interactive form of the verb, whereas Rebecca ohevet et Yaakov, the way she loves, it's a more simple way of loving. It's a state of loving, whereas Isaac might have been more of intentional and more of a struggle. So it's reading into the different forms of the verb. Yeah.
I know this kind of maybe a little bit off topic, but
Yeah.
maybe in some ways Isaac is longing for Ishmael. Because Ishmael was the hunter, he was the active one, and he was taken away from him.
That's beautiful. Maybe he's longing for his brother.
I'm wondering if there's some of that.
A lot of these themes get repeated through the generations. Yeah, so maybe he's longing for his brother. But there are different kinds of love. So we can argue, about what are the subtleties of the difference, but she's pointing out that Isaac is loving in a unique way. And then the second one, this is from the Akedah. So you'll remember this. So we're going back in time. This is talking to Abraham, that he's the one, Isaac is described as the one who Abraham loves. So at that moment of being sacrificed at the Akedah, God tells Abraham to take the son that he loves to be sacrificed. And then the third of these verses that I brought about love is at the top of the last page, source number 5. Isaac loved her. This is Isaac loving Rebecca, and this is yet another special kind of verb describing the love. Vaye'ehaveha. So this is an active type of love when Isaac falls in love with Rebecca. If there's someone who's an expert in biblical Hebrew grammar, this is your time to chime in. But we can notice that it doesn't say ohev, like he loves her in the way that we would say in the simple form of love. It's a kind of in love or a intentional love.
It's the same verb as Isaac loving Esau.
Uh-huh.
It just adds the object into it.
It is the same as source number 3, Vaye'ehav.
It's just adding the her.
Yeah, that's true. And that's interesting because it's maybe Isaac's special way of loving or something. He has a special loving verb that he gets that is used when the Torah is talking about him. So something special about Isaac's love. Okay, now I want to, before we run out of time, get to this last piece, which is, this is the story we talked about a little bit during the Torah service. This is verse number 6 on the last page, that Esau took a Hittite woman as his wife, and Isaac and Rebekah did not like that. That's the first verse there. And this last point from Rabbi Weiss, which I really love, is that, again, and even though they did not approve of his choice. The very next, this is the end of chapter 26 and the beginning of chapter 27. So the very next chapter, you could say, oh, it's a different topic. Now we're going to hear about Isaac asking his son to go get the game. I'm old. Can you get me kind of a last meal kind of a thing? But it also could be that he's trying to give his son a chance to make amends, make things a little bit better. So maybe instead of reading this as this totally separate idea, if we could read these verses as being part of maybe an outreach for trying to make the relationship better. Here, I'll read this one unless someone really wants to. Okay. So this verse about the Hittite woman, and then right away the next chapter, when Isaac was old and his eyes were too dim to see, he called his older son Esau and said to him, "My son," and he answered, "Here I am." And this is the Hineni, the special "here I am" that we've heard before. And he said, "I'm old now, I don't know how soon I may die. Take your gear, your quiver and bow, and go out into the open and hunt me some game. Then prepare a dish for me such as I like and bring it to me to eat, so that I can give you my innermost blessing before I die." And of course, we know what happens, right? Rebecca heard that and switched things around so that Jacob actually brought the food. But seeing that as being reaching out to try to give him a chance is, I think, really a generous reading. He wants to give Esau a fighting chance. And this is a task here. This is Rabbi Weiss. He wants to give Esau a task that he can excel at. And so he thinks, can you go hunt me something? That's so kind as a father to think of what his son could excel at. Yeah.
The one you didn't highlight in the last verse of this is again kasher ahavti. The way it's translated as like, but it's the same word. The way I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I love the things you bring me.
Right. Maybe it's a more casual kind of a love, but it's yes. I think that's true that the ohev in that case is more like I really like that dish. I really like the meat. But again, we have a love word with Isaac. So yeah, I think it's just so beautiful.
Jonathan has a
Oh yeah, please.
I just think this argues for maybe a more utilitarian interpretation of the previous quotation number 3. Isaac loved Esau, for there was game in his mouth. I don't see this as like giving Esau a chance for recovery. I think it's something he directly values. I mean, maybe it's a more
So it's about the meat and not about the relationship.
no, I wouldn't put it that way. I would say that, certainly in Jewish culture, food is a very important symbol of love and our relationship. So I think, to me, the more straightforward interpretation is that Isaac simply directly valued Esau for various things, including his ability to provide food for the family.
I actually think that if he genuinely wanted it, I don't know if it takes away from, in other words, it wasn't contrived, like he made up a job for Esau, but he actually valued this part of Esau's character and his skills and abilities in hunting. But this was a chance for just, in other words, the juxtaposition just after Esau had kind of disappointed his parents. We can put that in modern terminology. Isaac immediately gives him this opportunity based on something he really values in his son to make it good.
Isaac says that this is going to be the occasion for giving you my innermost blessing. So it's important in and of itself.
Yes. And of course, the last verse about this is the famous scene where Isaac is trying to figure out what's going on, right? Because it's actually Jacob. So he says, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, though the hands are the hands of Esau." So we can read this as he's still hoping that it might be Esau, because he's hoping to have this repair of the relationship somehow. Yeah.
But wouldn't you think Isaac would know that it's really not Esau? Because
And if he might know, even if he does know, could it be that it's still about this, like wishing it could be?
No, I think he might know that it really is Jacob, and because no one he can but you can get, you know, you can make your arms hairy any way you want and make it feel like that. So I really, it might be that Isaac is letting them believe he's fooled. But, you know, it doesn't quite fit with what happens later in the Torah.
Why would he? Yeah.
It seems a little strange that he wouldn't figure out that someone who sounds like Jacob is Jacob.
I guess what does it mean? Well, and this is not something we have to answer today, but what does it mean if he knew, and what does it mean if he didn't know about him, maybe as a father? And I don't think there's one answer to that. Was there? Yeah, Donna.
I always have questioned the part where it says they were a source of bitterness for Isaac and Rebekah. I'm thinking they were only a source of bitterness for Rebekah. I think Isaac was just fine with this whole thing. I think there's a whole other dynamic going on there, and that I think we do hear a lot of her voice in a lot of these accounts, and that she projects onto him. I'm very familiar with this phenomenon.
Jewish family dynamics.
My father's been dead for 10 years, but every time something new happens, your father would agree with me. So I think that there is this other thing going on. I think I would think that he really does want to give his blessing to the elder son, and I think it's entirely possible that he is very confused by the scenario presented.
And it sounds like he's also influenced by Rebecca, his wife. But I think whatever he kind of has figured out, and I think there are a lot of different options. The first thing he does during this time of Esau being criticized is ask, and it's at the end of his life when he's maybe thinking about his legacy, is ask for something that he knows Esau is particularly able to do well. And that's a really intuitive, I think, loving, fatherly, parental move on his part. And it's pretty subtle. And like I said, he doesn't always get so much credit for being a hero. But he, in these quieter ways, Isaac is strong, right? He's connected to that gvura, that strength attribute. He's strong, but he's strong in a quiet way, and he loves in a way that is maybe unique. He might even have his own, his own language of love, and he loves when it's difficult. And so I want to offer him as maybe more of a hero than we had given him credit for. Thank you, guys. Baruch Tiyeh.